realfaith.org.au.
We walked into this room, which we'd made available to a 17-year-old girl, and everything was beautiful. The doona was pink, and then Eddie said to me, "Brendan, what's this about?" And there was cardboard laid out on the floor, and there was a baseball bat. And this 17-year-old girl had lived in abandoned buildings in and around the city. She'd slept on cardboard, and the way to protect herself was to always sleep with a baseball bat.
Welcome to Real Faith. Conversations about the impact faith has on our lives and the challenges we go through, helping us today and giving us hope for tomorrow. That's real people, real life, and real faith with Eric Scatterbo.
Well, today we have part 2 of our conversation with Major Brendan Nottle, who's been helping people in need for over 30 years with the Salvation Army. Brendan and his wife and mission partner, Major Sandra Nottle, run the Salvo's operations in the city of Melbourne and have done so since 2003. And as we heard last time, Brendan is also the chaplain for the Collingwood Football Club and has been in that role since the year 2000. Today we'll hear more of Brendan's story and how he combines these two roles. He says that it's been beneficial for both those in need and for the footy players. We'll find out how as he shares with us today. Once again, Brendan is joining me in our Melbourne studios. What are the players' attitudes? Like, who's this guy? What's he all about? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And that was exactly the attitude.
Is that right?
I think you've got to get to work around earning respect. And how do you do that? Well,
yeah,
I think you
that
do
was my next question, yeah.
Well, I think Alan Dunn, who was the chaplain at the Essendon Football Club, said to me, you need to loiter with intent. So just be around.
Loiter with intent.
Yeah. And just wander around and just help out. So I was doing things as mundane as, picking up the wet football shorts at the end of a game and sorting those. And
all the glory jobs.
All the glory, absolutely. Getting the dirty socks and putting those in the washing machine and all those sorts of simple things. But what it meant was I was around and building connections and building relationships. And I think what that actually led to was a really profound series of moments where we actually run a cafe, Eric, with the Salvation Army in the city of Melbourne, and the cafe provides free food. So we look for food that's going to be thrown out. It's still got good life on it, and we've got some amazing chefs. So Adam Thompson and Alex Narkowitz, they do some amazing work preparing the food with volunteers. And we feed 600 people a day, 5 days a week out of our centre at Bourke Street. So it's about addressing food insecurity. It's about addressing lack of friends. So social isolation is a massive issue. So rather than doing things for people, we're actually committed to this idea of doing life with people. Like Jesus did.
Yeah.
So instead of just putting a meal on the table, let's sit down, let's have a conversation with people. And then when you do that, you start to realise that the people that we work with often don't have access to the fundamentals of life. And I've found in my experience doing this work that if someone's locked out or they have a feeling of being locked out of what they need, they become quite angry on occasions, and often it's a very short path until they're locked up. So we need to lock them in. So let's lock them into meaningful community. Let's lock them into the supports that they need. So we actually have Services Australia, so Centrelink are there full-time at our cafe. So they'll bring someone a coffee and then they'll sit down and have a conversation and help resolve any issues that they might have around income support. We have NDIS based at Bourke Street. We have Hearing Australia at Bourke Street at our cafe. We have Diabetes Australia there. We have, the College of Optometry there. So we bring all of these services to the people. We have a health clinic there. We're about to start a mental health clinic. Bring the services to the people so that they can be locked into the support that they not only need, but they deserve, because they're human beings created in the image of God. So in this cafe one day, we were wrapping up and we'd provided lunch, and a young mum came up and she was absolutely distraught. So she was just weeping, and she had a little girl with her who was about 6 at the time. And so I went over and tried to talk to this young mum who found it difficult to talk because she just kept sobbing all the time. And the story turned out to be that she had experienced family violence, left home, didn't know where to go. So a friend of hers said, look, just go down the road. There's a rooming house. You don't need rental history or references or bond. Just pay your weekly rent. You'll be fine. So she was fine. for a number of weeks until she found out that the person in the room next to her had been released from prison and he'd been in there on child sex offence charges.
Oh.
So this young mum who was, as you can imagine, extremely protective of a little girl had thought she'd put her little girl in harm's way. So she came to us saying, I don't know what to do. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. Like, I honestly don't know where we're going to get you somewhere safe right now. So we got her some temporary accommodation, and I went and saw Eddie Maguire, who was the president of the Collingwood Football Club, and told him the story. And he was really engaged, and I got a little bit excited when he said to me, tell me what you need. And I just said, we need 100 houses. So I lost him again at that point. And he, very impolitely told me where to go. And then we calmed down, and then we went back to 2 houses. And I remember Collingwood Football Club rented those 2 houses in their name.
Oh, okay.
And I went with Eddie to one of the 2 houses that was part of that program. So this was back in 2010. And we walked into this room, which we'd made available to a 17-year-old girl. And everything was beautiful. The doona was pink. It was beautifully laid out. There was a pink teddy bear. There was a pink pillow on the bed. Just looked very beautiful and very gentle. And then Eddie said to me, Brendan, come over here. And he called me around to the other side of the bed. And he said, what's this about? And there was cardboard laid out on the floor. And there was a baseball bat next to the cardboard. And this 17-year-old girl had lived in abandoned buildings in and around the city. She'd slept on cardboard, and the way to protect herself was to always sleep with a baseball bat. And she still had this fear in her heart and her mind that she would be attacked during the night, even though she was in this beautiful room in a very safe house. And so she chose to sleep on the cardboard next to her beautiful, comfortable bed with a baseball bat. So it was a powerful reminder that when we work with people that are homeless, we often make an assumption that all they need is a roof over their head, and we've done our job. Everything will be fine. Yeah, we've done our job. We'll move on to the next person. And during COVID, there was some amazing work done by lots of agencies to get people off the street during a pandemic and get them into housing. But a lot of us fell into that trap of thinking a roof over the head is enough, and it wasn't, because a lot of those people didn't have the drivers for their homelessness addressed, and so they just cycled back onto the street again. And with this girl here, it was a profound lesson to us that we needed to not only provide accommodation but wrap support around every single one of those people to help address the drivers for their homelessness and to help them take the time to heal and start to get back on their feet again. And
how do you do that?
Well, we have workers that work with people in the housing. So rather than just having a house and put the person in there and saying, that's it, we move on, aren't we good? We actually have workers that work intensively with those people.
Like counsellors? Or
they are, yeah.
To get to the root cause?
Absolutely, yeah. And then they tap into other services as well. So one person, one organisation is not going to resolve a series of complex issues. We have to work collaboratively with all sorts of organisations. And that's what we see here. So to Eddie's credit and the Collingwood Football Club's credit, they actually arranged for us to have 50 houses.
Okay.
Yeah, so and now we're thinking about next steps. We're going through a really interesting phase where we're considering where do we go now with the housing. So we believe that it's not just about creating safe homes that's important, but it's actually about creating safe, caring communities of people. So that's the next phase now, thinking around that particular program called Magpie Nest.
Now, footy players have adoring fans, all yelling, screaming their names, and you're trying to reach them.
Yeah.
How do they get involved with this, and what is their reaction?
I had a phone call one day from Matthew, who does a phenomenal job. Matthew Daniels is the manager of our cafe at Burke Street. He's an amazing human being. And he rang me and he said, Brendan, there's an AFL footballer sitting on the couch in the cafe watching TV, and I've spoken to him and I've said, can I help you? He said, no, I'm fine. Just give me some space, I'm fine. And he just sat there quietly watching TV in the middle of our cafe, surrounded by people that were homeless, people dealing with complex mental health issues. So I wandered in.
Yeah, what's going on?
And I saw this player and I said, let's go and get a coffee. So I sat down with this player and he said to me, you know what's happened? I've had this argument with my wife about new timber that we want to put on our kitchen benches. And he said, I want one sort of timber, she wants another sort of timber, and the argument has escalated that much that we're now talking about separation.
Oh.
And he said, I stopped and I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous that we've got to this point. I need to put some perspective in my life. So he came into the cafe and he said, I think I've got problems. And I sat down in the cafe and I started to realise I don't have any problems at all. I've actually got a really good life, a blessed life. And he would continue to bring footballers in. So we would see footballers that had done a hamstring and they thought that was the end of their life, or they'd injured a shoulder or whatever it might be. And he would bring them in and just say, just sit, just sit, chat to people if you want to, listen to their stories.
Do these homeless people know who they are?
Absolutely they do. They're amazing.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're loving this.
Yeah. But they're very appreciative of the fact that AFL footballers would give up their time and come and sit with them and have conversation. So it was a very special moment and continues to be a very special moment for people that are really vulnerable to have AFL footballers, or we have Melbourne Storm players come in as well. We have Melbourne Vixens players come in. The vulnerable people are really moved by the willingness of these people to come and spend time with them. But I think it's reciprocated back the other way, probably tenfold, because I think what it does for person after person is it says, you think you've got problems. You've actually got a great life. So it puts everything into perspective. And I think the other thing it does too is, you're absolutely right, Eric. I think people that are involved in elite sports often live in a bubble, and it's an extremely privileged bubble. And I think to have that bubble slightly burst when they come into a place like ours, or they come out on outreach with us, I think what that does is it just grounds young people with exceptional sporting talent, but it grounds them. And I think what it's done that's been really powerful is it's actually got some of these young people thinking about, I've got some wealth. I've got very good connections with people that have got wealth. I think maybe together we might be able to make a difference for this really vulnerable group of people. So I was out in the van one night, we're handing out food and connecting with people, and a 15-year-old boy from Tasmania came up and he said, I need accommodation. So I rang all the services to see if I could get him in somewhere. It was late. It was about 11:30 at night. And I couldn't find anywhere. And so the best I could offer was a pillow and a doona, and just said, look, here's a place that you could go to that's relatively quiet. You should be okay. Come back in the morning, we'll start the process again. So there's 3 AFL footballers, each from a different club. So it's Paul Curie from Collingwood, Joel Bowden from Richmond, Mark Bolton from Essendon. They said to me, this is outrageous. I said, absolutely it is, but what are we going to do? And they said, we're going to come up with a solution. So they went off and had a coffee afterwards, and a number of coffees, I think, and they come up with this plan for the ladder program. So they actually take a percentage of every AFL player's wage, and it goes into a fund, and they've created a series of refuges for young people. And again, it's not just about providing accommodation, but they provide wraparound support, including training and employment opportunities to help get these young people back on their feet. And it came about because these 3 footballers sat in the back of the van, got exposed to real life, but actually started to think, we can do something. We can make a difference with our lives here, and they have.
So is that a part of what you do as the chaplain, that you regularly have players get involved in helping people on the streets?
It's a critical part of what we do, And I think having players come and visit people in Magpie Nest Housing, players come and visit people in the Magpie Nest Cafe that we run at Burke Street is a really important role in terms of exposing players and staff to real life and getting them thinking about how do they use their skills, how do they use their connections to make a difference.
Our guest today is once again Major Brendan Nottle, who's been a Salvation Army officer for over 30 years. Also, as we've been hearing, Brendan has been the chaplain for the Collingwood Football Club since the year 2000. Next, we'll hear more of Brendan's story and how he's part of a long Salvos tradition. That's all coming up when we return right here on Real Faith.
The Word for Today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
You're listening to Real Faith, conversations with real people about how God works in their lives. If you want to know more about integrating faith into your life, our website is realfaith.org.au. Just go to the website and you'll find helpful articles about the impact faith can have on your life. Once again, that's realfaith.org.au.
Welcome back. I'm Eric Scadabo, and today I'm chatting once again with Major Brendan Nottle from the Salvation Army. Brendan and his wife and mission partner, Major Sandra Nottle, run the Salvos operations in the city of Melbourne and have done so since 2003. Together, they have a heart for helping the most vulnerable and marginalized people in society. Now, here's more of my conversation with Brendan. Okay, so looking back over your 30 years of service with the Salvation Army, what is one of the most impacting stories you can think of?
I think what I see is God's kingdom's being lived out in all sorts of ways by all sorts of people. Mm-hmm. So I actually see the amazing care that's provided by people that are homeless, by people that are really vulnerable. They genuinely care and look out for each other. So if you think I'm just describing a happy family or a perfect community, I'm not. It's difficult. Yeah. It's challenging.
But they're helping each other.
Not always. But I see glimpses of people helping, and I see glimpses of God's kingdom at work in the broader community too, where people are looking out for each other and caring for each other and caring for the most vulnerable. And Eric, I'm really challenged about our city here in Melbourne. So what happened was back in August 1835, John Batman turned up in a ship down at the Yarra Turning Basin. So it's near Queensbridge Street, near Crown Casino. And he gets out of his ship back in August 1835 and he looks out over the land. It was known as Port Phillip back then. And he says, this is a place for a village. And then I think he went a step too far. He said, I declare it to be known as Batmania. So the name never stuck, fortunately. So they ended up calling it Melbourne. But really interestingly, he's looking at this land through a commercial lens. So he's thinking, I'm going to make a fortune out of this. But with him was a man by the name of Henry Reid, who also come from Launceston in Tasmania. And Reid was a Methodist, very passionate Christian. So Reid looks at this land, he gets excited, but he's driven by a whole different set of values, Christian values, kingdom values. So he looks and he sees an opportunity to have a new land, a new city, which is based on the value of no one left behind. He wants a new city that's based on the value of bring the outsider into the centre of the community, wrap support around them, help them get back on their feet. He's driven by a value that says, I'm going to challenge and change structures and systems that produce victims. So he says to Batman, you set up this new city, I'm going to loan you ships, I'm going to loan you farming equipment, I'm going to loan you £3,000, I'm going to help you establish this new city. Fast forward from 1835 to 1865, and Henry Reid and his wife Maria have sold up their land holdings in Launceston and they've moved to the East End of London. And they bump into a couple of other Methodists, William and Catherine Booth, who were in the early days of forming the Christian mission, later to be known as the Salvation Army. So Reid says to Booth, here's a cheque. I love what you're doing. So this cheque is to support this new social work that you're doing. But I'm hearing you say that you're struggling to get this new movement up and going, this Christian movement, because you're also having to work to live. So I'm going to pay you a weekly stipend for the rest of your lives so you can focus on this new movement. So fast forward a little bit further, and the grandson of the Reids is influenced by these very same values. No one left behind, bring the outsider into the centre of the community, wrap support around them, challenge and change systems and structures that produce victims. And their grandson helps found Qantas. His name is Hudson Fish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Then you've got their granddaughter-in-law helps start the Heidi Art Museum here in Melbourne. So there's this remarkable sense that his values, his Christian values, were flowing on through his family, but they're also flowing on into the city of Melbourne. So in 1869, a delegation of people came and saw a medical doctor by the name of Dr. John Singleton, an Anglican, and he was with the Reverend John Horsley, who was a Methodist, and this delegation said, we're really concerned because there are people dying of preventable disease here in the city, and there are a lot of kids dying. You have to do something. So the medical doctor, Dr. John Singleton, establishes the first free medical clinic in the world. It's established in Wellington Street, Collingwood in 1869.
Wow.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Then in 1883, Singleton and his wife are waiting outside the old Melbourne jail every night. So when people are released from prison, he says, do you have somewhere to stay tonight? No, come and stay with us. And then in 1883, the Salvation Army sent a couple from London to Melbourne to establish the Salvation Army here. And that was Captains James and Alice Barker. So they quickly became friends with the Singletons. So they joined the Singletons outside the old Melbourne jail in meeting prisoners and providing accommodation for them. And Singleton says to Barker, I will buy you a house that you can use for the Salvation Army to set up the first halfway house for prisoners in the world, set up in Melbourne. And that house that's still standing in Carlton became the first expression of Salvation Army social work in the world. So it starts here in Melbourne.
Wow.
So you've got churches, you've got individuals, you've got organisations all working based on the values of Henry Reid. No one left behind, bring the outsider into the centre of the community, wrap support around them, help them get back on their feet, and challenge and change systems and structures that produce victims. And so Melbourne in the 1890s becomes known as the world's first social experiment. So people come from around the world to have a look at how Melbourne cares for its most vulnerable. So I think right there is the heart of who Melbourne was back then, but it's the heart of who Melbourne should be today. And I get glimpses of that every day where I see people not knowing the story of Reid, but they know that this is a city that genuinely cares for the outsider, for the vulnerable, doing their little bit. Every day I see it. And
did you know anything about this when you were getting involved, that you're part of a long history?
No, I had no idea about any of this. I've just stumbled upon it. And you know, along the way, people have come and told me the story and shared bits and pieces with me, and also told me that Reid, when he was here back in 1835, spent time living with the local Wurundjeri people. And when it came time for Reid to return to Launceston, he said that some of the Aboriginal people actually wept. And I wonder, I haven't seen this written down anywhere, Eric, but I actually wonder if that deep commitment to each other was based on shared values, because one of the core values of the Wurundjeri people back then, but still today, is no one left behind. So I think, you know, this city is it's special to me, and it's very unique, and I think it's unique because of the values that were embedded by the local Wurundjeri people, but also by Reid, the Methodist, the Christian, and I think those values have flowed and been embedded in the city right throughout its history.
And you're a part of that now?
Oh yeah, I think I really feel like I'm just living out history now, and I think I really feel a strong sense of calling to call the city back to those values.
So you and your wife and your co-workers at the Salvation Army have basically been the hands and feet of Jesus to the marginalized people in society for all these years. What do you think is the overall spiritual impact of all that you've been a part of?
Yeah. Well, I think obviously the question that would come to some people's minds is how many people have come to faith. Well, there's certainly been people that come to faith, but I firmly believe that Jesus was about a holistic salvation, and the Salvation Army is certainly about that. So the founder of the Salvation Army, William Booth, often talked about soup, soap, salvation. So he talked about you cannot preach to a man or a woman who has an empty stomach. So we need to be meeting those material needs, and I think we need to be at work in caring for the whole person. And I think when I read history, particularly Salvation Army history, William Booth actually said, go for souls and go for the worst. And I think people have assumed that he was talking about go for the spiritual part of a person's being, but the soul actually represented the entire person. And I think Booth was actually saying, go for those people that are doing it extremely tough, that everybody else has given up on. They're the people that we need to connect with and rebuild their lives and help them experience salvation in every aspect of their lives. And so I think when we stop and think about a holistic form of salvation, I'm deeply encouraged by the work that our team has done and continues to do, because I think they're remarkable. And I think the impact that they've had is incredible and continues to be as well.
And has it been fulfilling for you?
Oh, no, absolutely no question. It's the thing that gets me out of bed every day. Do you do it for the money? No, not at all. You know, do you do it for fame? Categorically not. But do you do it because there's this incredible sense that you're involved in literally saving a life? Absolutely. That's the thing that gets me going every day.
Well, I could sit and listen to your stories all day, but we've run out of time. Thank
You're
you
too
so
nice,
much.
Eric. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for listening to me rabbit on for the last whatever it's been. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was part 2 of my conversation with Major Brendan Nottle from the Salvation Army. And it was great to hear his enthusiasm for helping people in need. Brendan and his team go out on the streets of Melbourne and provide practical support, including meals, clothing, and counseling. They also connect people with services that can help them in their transition back into society. But most importantly, Brendan's strength is in forging one-on-one human connections that help people feel less marginalized and alone. To learn more about the Salvos and all the work they're doing, including Brendan's work, you can go to their website. It's salvationarmy.org.au. Once again, that's salvationarmy.org.au. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Major Brendan Nottle's story. And until next time, I'm Eric Scadabo. So long, and God bless.
You've been listening to Real Faith, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message through our website, realfaith.org.au. That's realfaith.org.au.
Real Faith is a production of Vision Christian Media.
This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au.